people are bringing their whole leadership team because they see that this is a great way for us to be aligned. There's content that suits everyone. And we see that more and more, that companies take the chance to go to these events, both for aligning, learning more, and expanding their networks.
I'm going to start off, Daniel and Thomas. Thank you very much for joining Future Fuzz.
Thanks for having us.
Marketing podcast. Yeah, amazing. I've been checking out this SaaSiest community, but I think what we'd love to hear is like, what's the story? Like, how did it begin? And you guys come in pairs, yeah, exactly. Right, Daniel? You told me that. I love that. We only come in pairs.
We only come in pairs, and sometimes I'm not sure if it's the most efficient method, but it is powerful for the brand. It's like I think people know, many people know SaaSiest as a brand, and they know that behind SaaSiest is Daniel and Thomas, these two geezers, from Sweden, and it's a fun thing, it's a fun story. But, to be honest, Justin, I wish I could sit here and say, we've had this question so many times, and I always give the same answer. I wish I would be able to say, like, look, we had this grand plan, we saw a void in the market, and then we put the plan together, and then we executed like hell, and here we are 3 years later. It's not at all like that. I wish it was like that, but it's not at all like that. So honestly, Thomas and I, we've been working in B2B SaaS for the past 20 years, way before it was referred to B2B SaaS, when it was just tech and on-prem solution and all of these things. But at our last gig where Thomas and I worked, we had a really good run with that. And somewhere in that organization, we felt that there's something a little bit missing here in Europe. And we didn't think about it as a business idea. Like all the inspiration that we got, we had a great board, great advisors and so on. A lot of the stuff that we were fed, here's how you scale, here's how you grow, was very US heavy.
Yeah.
And while I will always say US is 5 years ahead of us when it comes to SaaS and now AI and so on, although AI has already existed for a few years, they're always ahead. We just have to accept that. But the growth models, the tactics to accelerate your business and your growth and so on, coming from the US doesn't always apply if your business started in Little Netherlands.
Of course.
Yes. So we felt that we can't be the only ones thinking about this. So actually we started a podcast to interview other B2B SaaS leaders, more or less to still our own curiosity. Because we had some questions, we've been at it for a few businesses, and we had some success, some failures, but we still had many unanswered questions. So we're like, okay, let's start asking people that we know have done this and so on. And turned out that there was an appetite from this. So actually, we started with the podcast, and then more and more guests started to or people started to ask, like, hey, this is cool. Can I be a guest on your podcast? I have some learnings to share. And then there was a little bit of a ripple effect.
From starting trying to find guests to guests actually approaching us, wanting to be on the podcast. That was one of the first wow moments in what we did here.
Yeah, and I think what really resonated with people, what people felt like, look, yes, we need the European story. It's different here. Like we can't raise, and this was during the heydays, 3-4 years ago when money was still free. Still at that time, European founders they couldn't raise the same amount of money as their US counterparts. They didn't have access to the same talent pool. You know how it is, like sometimes people say like, well, the European market is the most developed market, 700 million people, blah, blah, blah. But they're spread across 30 different countries, a bunch of different currencies, languages, legislation, and all of that. So the dynamics are very different. And then that's probably when we realized, we have something here. And then we had some of these guests encourage us to do more of this, do more of that, and the rest is history. But there's a bunch of critical milestones that happened through that point. And Thomas, I know we were at some point bigger than Jason Lemkin and SaaSter at Clubhouse. I don't know if you remember Clubhouse, Justin.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a big thing for us. I mean, we had full-time jobs. We started to do things online. We did the podcast. Clubhouse came as the new hottest thing, the audio-based social network where you needed to have...
Oh, right, that
you
one.
needed to have an invite. Everyone
yeah.
wanted an invite.
Yeah.
And we did weekly shows, having like 6 guests every time. And suddenly we have had more than 120 speakers in just a few months in our different forums, in the podcast and in the Clubhouse, which positioned us super well to start doing bigger digital events. And this was during COVID, and the appetite was huge around these things. So that made us grow very fast. And
amazing stuff. Yeah. And when did you get into the in-person events? When did the in-person events start happening through SaaSiest?
I mean, that was pretty much, directed by COVID. Yeah. Because, I mean, we grew our online presence during 2021 and the country was shut down. But after a very successful digital event in September 2021, and us also starting to build our CEO. Which is crazy
to think about, because we charge for attendance to the digital event, and people paid, bought tickets to join in. It was crazy.
Yeah, and we ended up having 20 partners reaching out to us, wanted to be a part of it. And then we also started up our CEO and our executive networks in the end of 2021. But we decided to do the largest B2B SaaS event that has been done in the Nordics, where we started out. So we came from nowhere. We rented the biggest venue here in Malmö, Sweden, and they wanted to have half of the money, way ahead of the event. And we said we're gonna gather 1,200 people, and when we were, 6 weeks ahead of the event, we were 108 people. And very nervous, because you couldn't even gather so much people back then. So we were in a situation where we had to decide.
COVID was still in play. So there were restrictions. Are we going to risk our 50% and wait another week? Or are we going to, back down? But, we didn't back down. A week afterwards, the restrictions were lifted off, and it just skyrocketed. We filled the venue, and the rest is history. And now we're doing our fifth...
The rest is history, indeed.
Yeah, we're doing our fifth Nordic event next year, and now we're doing our third Benelux event in the fall. So
the event in Amsterdam, which is coming up in October. Let's dive into the Amsterdam event in a moment. So I want to focus a bit more on the European thing, because I think that's like massively interesting. Because where I came from in terms of podcasting is that around about, I would say pre-COVID, I started tuning into a lot of business podcasts, especially marketing, maybe SaaS related, strategy, that kind of thing. And I was listening to a lot. And then after a while, I was like, man, I'm getting a bit bored of this, because they're all American, right? I think that they were like 95% US based. And the ones that I tuned into Europe and the UK, didn't want to be, negative towards others, but they weren't very good. Mm-hmm. And it was exactly the same thing. And I was like, there's not enough for Europe. And that's actually why I started Future Fuzz, because there was that gap. And I think that's super smart, is that, if you look at all the investment maps, and you're talking about when money was free, and we're talking about like lots of SaaS companies growing, it was absolutely incredible back then that some very, very, very good startups in Europe were not raising, were they? Compared to what some of the American companies were doing. I'm just thinking, for you guys now, where do you think it's heading for European SaaS companies? Where do you think the opportunities lie?
I mean, I think nothing has necessarily changed. I think that the 3-4 years where money was free and it was booming, people, like anybody with an idea on a piece of paper could raise funds, and customers had extra access to money and could risk it. That's the anomaly. So that was not normal. That was the exception to the rule. It wasn't like that 7-8 years ago, so to say. So I think we're just going back to some kind of normal state and normal standard. And I think that Europe is very well positioned to be very successful. We have tons of great companies here. I mean, in Netherlands, you have lots of them that are doing really well. You have, of course, Miro, that has a big office in Amsterdam. They're doing really well internationally. You have Agen, you have SendCloud. There's tons of them. I think we have a solid base here and a foundation, an ecosystem in Europe to be successful. I think what we can learn from the Americans is to dare to risk a little bit more.
Yeah, they're very risk averse, right?
To dare to actually go out and say, I'm going to be the best in the world. Because the blunt fact here is that being best in Europe is usually not enough.
It's not enough,
but if you're best in the US, that often means that soon enough, you're going to be best and biggest in the world. Yeah. So I think we have an opportunity here that we have lots of know-how. Now there's lots of organization, including like ours, that can help and facilitate. There's lots of intelligent investors out there and networks. So I think if we just come together, we have some really good things going on for us here in Europe. And we start to see that also now in the AI space. Like look at Lovable. Like that's a...
Future Fuzz is sponsored by SalesSource, B2B pipeline management and sales growth for your business.
The pride of Sweden right now.
The pride of Sweden. Yeah. But hang on a second. It was like the original company setup was in the States, though, right? That was a funny post that went around recently on LinkedIn.
I say he's very much still very Swedish, Anton and the team here.
He's a Swedish guy, but it was I think it was Philadelphia that Lovable was first set up in the US. But whatever,
could be.
It was a funny post. But it's Sweden, hey, and that's my next question directed towards Thomas. What is it about Sweden and business and startup? I mean, and also music as well, but maybe that's another podcast to talk about music. But what is it about the Swedish and the Swedish market that so many great startups and companies come from that region?
Well, I think, we have had the benefit of having some great tech companies over the years. We have had Ericsson, we have had others that have fueled the market with engineers. I think we have a good engineering history here in Sweden. Another thing is that we were and I know it's the same in the Benelux, very early on when it came to internet adoption. We had something that was called the internet driving license, I think here back in the days where, everyone should get and learn how to go out to internet and use new technologies. I think there were a lot of infrastructure things that was invested in here. So I think that a mix of tech companies, investment in infrastructure and also the education here, and then we have a tradition of innovation, right? We have all of this, SKF. We have IKEA. The mouse, computer mouse, whatever. So I think for some reason Sweden is a country of innovators.
Is the computer mouse Swedish?
Yes, it is.
Oh wow!
The computer mouse is Swedish. Did you know that Bluetooth was invented in Sweden by...
I did know that. Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
But
and it was named after a pirate or something.
Maybe it's the meatballs, the smorgasbord, or something else that is involved as well. But
what about the risk? What about the risk side of things? I think Swedish are a little bit less risk averse. That's the feeling I get anyway.
It depends on who you compare to, and I guess it also depends on...
The Belgians.
Yeah, the Belgians.
To all my Belgian brothers and sisters, I love you dearly, but you are so risk averse.
And I think it also depends on the industry. And I don't have any data to back this up. I think some of the success can be pinged back to maybe the early days of, like, as far back as the Skype success story. Like, if there's people in the 20s listening to this, they probably have no idea what Skype is. But think of Teams or Zoom 20 years ago, basically. So
it was pretty groundbreaking.
Yeah, that was pretty groundbreaking, massive success.
Yeah.
And I think there were a few stories like that at that time. And the advantage maybe we had compared to some other countries in Europe is that we are probably already now on our third generation of founders. So that there are the Skype founders that did the Skype exit, and they did the second exit, and they did the third exit. So there's a lot of experience in the community, and these people are putting that into play. They're recycling their money, they're recycling the knowledge, which I think is a little bit of an advantage. And that's why we have that acceleration. It's almost like, I think if you look at Silicon Valley and the Bay Area, you have a lot of the capital knowledge that's recycled. That's why they're always ahead. And I think in Europe, Stockholm and Copenhagen is getting there. London is definitely there. But there's some areas where you have this recycling of knowledge and capital, which I think gives a special boost.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that, Daniel. I think that's really, really valid point. It's the fact that the investment goes back in, the knowledge goes back in, and also the encouraging the others to be entrepreneurs. Because we should do some stats breakdown here, but I'm pretty sure if you make a Nordic comparison, if you were to compare Sweden to Norway, for example, Norway is an incredibly rich country, right? I think officially it's probably like the second richest country in the world or something like that, if you look at that country. But they don't do it. They struggle to encourage younger people to take the risk and go and start a company, because they look to their friend who's working potentially in the oil industry or working in consulting, who's earning really, really, really good salary. And they're thinking, why should I do that? Right. But whereas in other countries are saying, well, hang on a minute, guys, look at those guys. They were super successful. Right. You can be too. Just try it for a few years. And if it doesn't work, you can go and work for the big companies that are doing really well. Right. So that's the kind of mentality shift that's very, very different.
Exactly.
So,
and I think there's an aspect like there's some psychology here, or like if you just take the human aspect, and if you look at what triggers people, many people want to be the rock star. And these days, in many countries, especially if you look at Sweden and many other European countries, like who are the CEOs and the founders that get all the love, all the attention? They get all the big headlines in the news. It's the lovable guy. Like it's a Spotify guy. The lovable guy is like he's losing a lot of money right now, and it's probably by design and plan. Like nobody writes about the Volvo CEO. But they made millions of dollars in profit or billions the last quarter. Nobody writes about the Heineken CEO. Like these are solid businesses, but it's not. It doesn't give you rock star status anymore.
And
that's why the young generation feels like, well, I want to have a good living, but I also want to be the rock star a little bit. Where's the rock star status right now? It's in tech. Like back in the days, back in the days, still the case. Like I feel that's why London is such an interesting place. Like you can be a rock star either in tech or in banking and finance, and we're going to have to see who's going to win. So we have these hubs, but in Sweden right now, and in many of the Nordic countries, and I start to see that also in Benelux, rock star status, you get that in tech.
Yeah, definitely. You got me so excited there. I slipped into a bit of Dutch while you were talking. So brilliant. Let's talk about, while we mentioned Dutch, let's talk about your event, which is coming up in Amsterdam, right? So you've run successful events many years in Sweden. I think your Amsterdam event will be the 3rd edition, if I'm not mistaken, in October.
That's correct.
So tell me about the show. Like, what have you got planned? What can people expect? A lot of people that listen to the podcast are from the SaaS world and the marketing world, etc. So what have you got lined up?
Absolutely. I mean, I think we have a quite unique setup for the events that we do, the SaaSiest events. And it's all about, bringing people together and have an environment where you can learn from each other. And we bring what we say the best of international and regional local speakers. So we put a lot of effort into the program. So you will see a number of selected speakers that will cover different topics around B2B SaaS, and then also, of course, from the region. And then we make sure also that you can network in many different ways. I mean, it's about building relations, and of course you can book your one-to-one meetings ahead. There is networking breaks and so on. But we also think it's important to connect on other levels. So that's why we are putting a lot of effort in social events. So if you come the day before, you can participate in a paddle tournament, you can go on a canal tour. We have a morning run, there's a poker tournament and so on. And I mean, it's great fun, but it's also an important part of the networking. So and then of course we love to have a good party. SaaSiest event, they should be really fun. and we try to do whatever we can to make it a great experience. You should have good food and drinks. You shouldn't have to go out in the city to try find food or in long queues in food trucks and buy your food yourself. It should be a complete experience when you come to a SaaSiest event from the start to the end. That it should be super valuable both when it comes to the content and to the context that you make, and you should really feel the vibe over the full 2 days. So it's what we say 2+1 day event. We have the day 0 with a lot of these pre-events, social events, and then we have 2 full days of content and networking.
Yeah,
brilliant, fantastic. Well, just one quick question. I'm curious for actually SaaS companies that I know and we work with. Will there also be investors there?
There will be some. So 10% of the tickets are available for investors, recruiters, service providers, and the rest is only for B2B SaaS companies. And our main audience is B2B SaaS scale-ups, 2 million euros in ARR and up. So we are not the event for the very early startups that are trying to find their business ideas or try to find, their first funding seed and so on. There is a lot of other events that are doing that. Now we are very much focusing on the operational things. So we have, topics around everything from different revenue topics, product, customer success, operations, finance, and of course the CEO founders as well. But this is not only an event for founders of from start to end. It's for executives all across the organization, and that's what we're seeing as well. I'm
very excited about it. Yeah,
that people are bringing their whole leadership team because they see that this is a great way for us to be aligned. There's content that suits everyone, and we see that more and more that companies take the chance to go to these events, both for aligning, learning more, and expanding their networks.
Yeah, it's going to be really good for sure. I mean, I'm very excited about the talk from Charles from Lemlist. Yeah. So Charles, CEO of Lemlist, he's just also recently been on the show. Probably will be the one released before this show has been released. And talking about how Charles, in his talk, he's talking about how they scaled up from something like they were on 14 million and then they scaled it up to 27 million. So that's going to be his story. Without giving too much away. Right. But if you want to learn about that and you're in SaaS and you're doing more than 2 million a year, then you should definitely go to the event to listen to that talk alone.
And that's exactly it. So we don't put people on stage because they happen to represent a big company or because they raised a gazillion amount of dollars or it's not enough that you have a big name, so to say, to back you up. We want to put the stories up there that can help the people in attendance to accelerate. So the best session that people appreciate the most are the ones we call the how-to sessions. That's why we have a very clear structure in everybody that takes the stage, you got to give them how to do X, how to do Y. That is what people want to know because they come to our event, not just because Thomas and I are fun guys. They come here because they want to find shortcuts to accelerate. And it's to accelerate growth, to accelerate revenue, or to find a way to run the business more efficiently, which usually means doing more with the same or cutting some costs somewhere. Where can we cut some investments and spend the money elsewhere? So if you can give people the how-to tips and advice to get to these things, those are the sessions that land the best.
Absolutely amazing. So people can find out about the event by going to SaaSiest.com. And then you can find out about the community as well, which I highly recommend to do. You guys also open a Slack community as well, which I think also super useful. And you've got the podcast so people can check out podcast episodes too. So, guys, it's been absolutely amazing having you both on the show. It's a pleasure to have you both together because I know you come in a pair.
Thanks for having us again.
Yeah. And you also took a little bit of time out of your vacation, which I know is very important in Sweden to have the long vacation. So I really appreciate that too.
When a fellow podcaster reaches out, we do like Superman. We put our gear on and we show up.
Love it. And you got the cap. I want a cap, by the way. I want to steal one of your caps. Have you got any last comments you'd like to share with the audience?
We hope that you all are enjoying the summer. And like you and I said just in the beginning here, it's probably off record or off tape then. As we grow older and wiser here, we realize that, it's important to disconnect a little bit. So we hope you've had a chance to disconnect a little bit. And if there's anything that I guess any one of the three of us here can do to help you, crush and kill H2 here, we're happy to help in whatever way that is.
Amazing. Thanks so much, guys. And do check it out, SaaSiest.com. The event is in Amsterdam in October, and we'll see you there.
We will.
Take care.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for tuning in and making the choice to listen to this podcast. If you liked what you've heard today, please don't forget to subscribe.